Picture a journey 500 years in the making that captures the imagination of every young person of African descent in the United States.
Hi there, Visionary family, and welcome back to another one with Lady Visionary. Hope you guys are doing amazing. If you're new to my channel, please make sure you smash that red subscribe button and become part of this growing family here on YouTube. I'm here with Colin Roach from Amri Life Tours, and you guys have seen him before on my channel. All his details will be down below in the description bar. We have a special guest. Her name is Wala El Sheikh from Birthright, Africa. I really want you to start by introducing yourself, telling us a bit about your background.
Sure. So my name is Wala El Sheikh, if you pronounce it based on my heritage, which is Sudanese. I am originally born there, but immigrated along with my parents who moved us when I was turning 11 to America. So I am Sudanese American. However, I was raised mostly outside of Sudan as a child. My dad was a diplomat at the time, and so we were in Sweden for about 6 years. So those are my first recollections from about 1 to 7. And we went to Sudan for about a year after that. I did the first grade there in a British school system. We then were relocated with my dad to Uganda, where I went to an American international school system for about a couple of years, 2nd, 3rd grade. Went back to Sudan after some political turmoil that brought in a dictatorship that ousted my dad from his position, and he went looking for work while we were doing another year in Sudan, finishing up 4th grade there, and then he lands at the United Nations in New York, and that's my coming to America story, as I say. And we did land in Queens, and been raised since then. Was very much disconnected to the U.S. because of a political asylum status that we had for a while, and I didn't get to go back to Sudan for 15 years until the age of 25. So that is a real core part of my story that has also led to the founding of Birthright Africa, which I'm sure we're about to get into.
Yes, you're the CEO and founder of Birthright Africa. Tell us, what is Birthright Africa?
Yes, so we are a global movement, truly. At the end of the day, a global nonprofit committed to providing a free educational trip for every youth and young adult ages 13 to 30, starting in the United States. And for those who've been to the continent, who live in the diaspora, if you have had that experience, particularly later on in life, after some miseducation, misunderstandings, lack of awareness, it is so life-changing and truly connects you at a deep level to the truth of who we are as a people. For me personally, that was, a disconnect that I was feeling. And so once I learned about a similar concept another group was doing around Birthright, I was like, why isn't this happening for Black people? And that was how, in my early age, coming of age as an early professional, I knew I had to help start this if it wasn't already there. And I registered the website, transitioned my career from finance to education, really learned what was happening in the space or lack thereof, and how the Birthright mission as an educational one would integrate with the sector and help move the entire sector forward. So what we have done is built a collaborative partnership model with education, partnering with high schools, colleges, and community-based organizations. And thereby, we are an umbrella organization for this movement, supporting the sector with building out Birthright programs, providing the technical expertise, and funding. We really want to drive the awareness and funding from our highest net worth and influential folks to understand the impact of what this work is. And we were able to pilot in 2017 with the City University of New York, really understand what a 10-day experience is, but also begin that experience locally and nationally in the United States, because it's so important to learn our history here. And that history, along with present day legacy that's being built, is what we expose our Birthright scholars to. They get to go to cultural sites, museums, of course, but we also ensure that they understand the creativity and innovation and contributions of our ancestry and our current leaders and entrepreneurs, that they meet at their places of innovation as part of the exploration. So it's a very intentional mission around inspiring these youth and young adults to explore their cultural roots and what we call legacy of innovation, so that we instill that pride, the confidence and creativity for them to become the global leaders and entrepreneurs aspiring into the future, knowing this past and present, understanding they are the future, and being connected to their heritage and to the continent where the future is also taking shape.
Wow, that's really interesting because, I'm from a Caribbean background. No one told me about African history. Like, my parents didn't share anything with me. I was basically a very curious young person growing up, and I decided I wanted to go to Africa. I think I was about 25 at the time, and my family were just like, what's going on? And I think at that point, I was kind of going through a little bit of an identity crisis. I was born in the Caribbean, like people are saying I've got African history, and, so I was really going through that state of confusion. So I actually went to Ghana. That was my first time visiting the continent. I went to Ghana and I spent almost 3 months there, like learning the culture, learning more about our history. It was a very emotional time because I felt like, I was learning more about who I am through our history. And it even led me to come back to the UK because I grew up in the UK. So I came back to the UK, and then I went on to study a master's in global health and international development, because also I wanted to come back to the continent and offer the best of me. Yes. And then I spent quite a lot of time in the UK, and then decided, right, now is the time to give back. And I decided to relocate to Rwanda. So I'm currently in Rwanda right now with my husband and 2 babies. Completely, that experience in Ghana completely changed my whole life, my whole outlook on life, and just gave me the drive to believe in myself more as a Black woman, and just appreciate everything that our ancestors have done for us up until this point. And also it has driven me to, make a contribution to the motherland. So I really connect with that, and I can see that so many young people can really benefit from such a program.
Absolutely. I mean, literally what you just shared is our vision for every youth and young adult of African descent. Like, I could not have, you're the testimony. And we already have, 100% of our Birthright alumni. We've at this point impacted over 60, mostly in the college age range, but we've and have gone mostly to Ghana. There was a high school group out of New York City that went to South Africa for the 2019 year of return. We had about 4 or 5 cohorts in 2019, yes. And that's the idea, that multiple cohorts are going at a time. 100% of them feel life changed. 100% want to go back to the continent on their own to multiple countries. They, as an educator, I was really proud when we asked, do you feel like you have more resources, clarity, and belief in yourself? What you just said right there is the key. Because what a system of racism and oppression and a lack of history and knowledge does is create self-doubt.
Yeah.
Point blank. And that's how it gets you to mentally check out and therefore operate in a system truly disempowered, right? And so you're not going to believe in your own value to create value and contribute, and then reap the rewards of that value, which is what? Wealth. And at the end of the day, this is economics too, which is why we are so focused on innovation and understanding how this knowledge supports your future leadership and entrepreneurship aspirations, so you build legacy and wealth. We are very unapologetic about that. So your story truly highlights that. And so 100% of them have said they feel like they have, watching 98%, but a huge number feel like they have this resource and clarity and belief in themselves. And this was the shocker. We asked young people, right, ages 13 to 30, because, you know, a lot of us are making this transition, myself included, being bicontinental. But I'm talking about high school age. Over 90% have said they can see themselves living and working on the continent at that age. So we are expediting this connection to the diaspora where the real life implications of where you pursue your career in life, or even if you live in the diaspora, but do the exchange and trade, is real, and it's going to happen earlier. So this is truly generational transformation, right? We're changing the African diaspora for generations to come from one free educational trip to the continent.
So I need to ask a question here. I listened to what you said very carefully.
Mm-hmm.
What you seem to be establishing in my mind, from the way I see, is continuity. A continuity between the African continent and the diaspora.
Absolutely.
Which is a rope that has been broken, and you're weaving the yarn of that rope back together.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You're weaving the yarn of that rope back together. Right. And to me, what I hear you describing there is a spiritual journey.
Absolutely.
It's a spiritual journey. Now, let me share something with you. I live in Los Angeles all my adult life. I'm from the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago. Mm-hmm. But I live in Los Angeles all my adult life. And I noticed when I was living in Los Angeles, it's so multicultural. And I noticed people from the ancient countries like India and Iran, which used to be Persia, and so forth. When these people encounter problems, serious problems, they go back to their ancestral land. Or sometimes it's not the ancestral land, it's their land. Or the children will go back to where their parents are from. When they encounter a serious problem, or they have a massive decision to make, they will go home, what they call it, go home and touch base. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't understand why they would spend all that money and do all that planning to go all the way back from Los Angeles to India, or from Los Angeles to Iran.
Yeah.
Okay. And until one day, there was a Iranian guy I worked with. After a while, we developed a very solid friendship. And he told me, when I put my foot down on my soil, I feel the electricity of my culture. Those are his very words to me. He said, I feel the electricity, and the energy of my culture. When I put my foot on my soil, I feel, and he said something about his ancestors, you know, and I would never forget that. I would never forget that. You know, it's something about going, you know, I guess it's a definition of home.
Absolutely. I was going to tell you, our Birthright scholars say the same exact thing. The minute they walk out of the airport, the air feels, smells different, feels comforting. There's a sense of home. I mean, it's an entire country where your Blackness, that double consciousness, is just not a thing. And so you feel a sense of home. And I was describing it to someone else who still hasn't made it. And it clicked for me. I was like, I have to say this to everyone. When you've especially grown up in westernized capitalistic societies that are more individualistic driven, even though we come here for opportunity and education, there is very much a survival, sacrifice, mentality that dissipates when you go back to the ancestral land, because it is so community driven, right? And collective in nature. And so I explain to people, imagine being in a country where everybody feels like family, right? There's just besides the look and the feel of folks are all, like the majority are Black. So you release a lot of that, how am I being perceived? Can I connect with this person? And there's a sense from our African brothers and sisters, they know why we're coming. They know why we're coming for this connection. So they are welcoming very intentionally, especially those who understand the history, because not everyone does. But even those who don't, they're treating you just like they would treat, their family. They literally want you to come over, eat, stay, and then you see so much of the similarity in the music, the food, the mannerisms, the amount of scholars that have been mistaken for being from the country, or you look like my sister or my aunt, and names that have been found out to be African when we thought it was something else. It's just mind-blowing. The connections are beyond. And every time I go back, I have what I call a birthright moment. I just learned the last time I was in Ghana, which was in the middle of April, that my name means life in the Ga language.
Wow.
Life. I was like, oh my goodness. That, I literally just had a moment. And I'm from Sudan. So then you start to see connections within the continent. I mean, everybody from the Caribbean. So y'all are Caribbean. You literally look at the streets, the setup of the shops. It's like you literally feel like you're on your island. Every single one of our Caribbean scholars has said that. And we are a mixture in our cohort, especially having started in New York. What's been really powerful is that we are uniting the diaspora within the Birthright program, which has been also a challenge for us, right? We come from parents who had to immigrate and sacrifice and wanted us to be careful about our association to Blackness and what being Black American has been. And so we're healing, to your point, Colin. This is a spiritual healing as well, to understand we're so much more unified than we are not. Right. And it's been really powerful that our cohorts are made up of Black Americans, Afro-Caribbeans, Afro-Latinx, continental Africans, as I call myself, and others like me who grew up in the States and haven't been back since childhood. We need the birthright too, because I was assimilating into this American culture and thinking I never needed to be connected back to the continent. The fact that I am doing this work right now is actually mind-blowing to me.
Okay, I want to ask you another question.
Yeah.
You talked about working at Goldman Sachs, and you saw, and I didn't get a full understanding of this. Yeah. You saw something in the Jewish culture that made you do what you did, help you to do what you did. Yeah. And it was missing from our culture. Could you tell me what that was?
I mean, it wasn't. Yeah. I tell people the way the birthright concept came to me was two friends of Jewish descent that were getting their birthright Israel. I wasn't really paying attention to the Jewish culture and, that the fact that they were so unified. I was starting to pick up on that in my mid-20s, but it was literally learning that just because you are Jewish descended, you get a free 10-day trip to Israel to learn history and culture. And something in my brain was like, wait a minute, why isn't this happening for Black people to go to the continent, to go to Africa? At that point, I had been missing, I had not gone back in 15 years. So I was like, I need this. And I'm from there. So if I need this, then a whole bunch of us must need this. And then it makes even more sense. Oh, we need to learn history and culture because we're literally not taught in the schools. I can speak for myself going to New York City public schools where, people of African descent are at least 30% of the population. And we're not learning about, forget African history, not even African American history in depth. It's basically, okay, there was slavery. The states fought for the right to keep it. They lost. We had segregation. We had to fight for civil rights. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and there you have it. Literally, most people will tell you that history is what was taught. And so I recognize I don't know my history. Not African, not African American. I didn't understand what the Black struggle was because I'm coming with my Black immigrant view. Aren't we all here being able to access opportunity and education? And as long as I work hard, I'm gonna make it. And so I start understanding, oh, this is why there's only like 1 or 2 people in this honors class, or I'm the only 1 or 2 people in this, opportunity. You start learning some of the history a little bit. And then I started my birthright journey, if you will, once I learned about this concept of birthright, studying, through PBS documentaries. Shout out to Henry Louis Gates. Like, I'm a visual as well as auditory learner. So documentaries are my go-to. As part of my work in education, I read Miseducation of the Negro, really getting in-depth understanding about the systems that have been created to maintain the oppression and maintain a narrative that's very Eurocentric in leadership and greatness and contribution. And I'm like, no wonder. So we're just here walking around thinking we've been enslaved and colonized people, not realizing the resilience and the brilliance of getting through that to where we are today. And on top of that, we were creating and innovating. Like, why am I only at 25 learning about Madam C.J. Walker? Why am I only learning about, Kwame Nkrumah? I didn't even learn about Kwame Nkrumah until the Birthright program. Garrett Morgan, Chinua Achebe. Like, why didn't I get to read an author that was a Black author in school? Like, I can't tell you that there was an author that was Black that I read. I can't recall. Maybe I did, but I literally cannot recall it. And so it just dawned on me the depth and devastation of this. And I was also starting to pick up on microaggressions. I can call them that now. I didn't know at the time.